Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of the to the territory. Good afternoon to the testifiers. The concept of this bill I am in support of, but there are several things brought forward by the testifiers, and even speaking with colleagues, we definitely know that amendments would be needed. One of the things that was just discussed had to do with the Bureau of Economic Research, and I am of the mindset that it needs to be under that agency. I strongly believe that we need to start focusing on putting things where they're supposed to be in an effort to potentially even focus and build that agency into what it was created for. I want to ask a couple of questions in regards to how data is currently being collected. I know across the board other agencies collect information, but if we're going to be creating a centralized location for this information, how do some of the other agencies collect data, as well as the security aspect of collecting that data across the board? Anyone could start answering.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you for the question, Senator. And I'm going to jump in here because I do want to give our technical and local expert an opportunity to really explain. I think that what is being missed here is that there are there are information systems at all of the agencies, and then is created a mechanism that pulls that data into the longitudinal data system. Mr. Richardson, if you can go ahead and explain a little bit more.
Good afternoon. I'm James Richardson, Director of PRE, Planning, Research, and Evaluation, also the VIVIS Director. Currently, data is pulled nightly from several systems in the government. We, back in between 2012 and 2020, we have set up automated pumps that pulls the data nightly from each system that we're getting data from right now. And we're getting data from University of Virgin Islands, Department of Labor, Human Services, Department of Health, and Department of Finance. I don't think I missed any. So it's actually set up nightly, and we're pulling the data nightly.
Okay.
Mr. Richardson, could you also just touch on the data security? I know that there was a couple of questions about that, and I know that we do significant things to secure data.
Yes, because our data is actually being housed on the mainland or somewhere in the cloud, most of the security is done through the vendor and through the system, and it's actually housed in Amazon Cloud. So the agreement we have with them, and there's also insurance on the data aspect of it and the breaches.
Okay, thank you. If this was to be moved under the Bureau of Economic Research, and that would eliminate the unnecessary need to have another executive director under the office of the governor, almost setting up a whole nother entity under the office of the governor. What would be some of the best practices do you guys believe would be best to collect this necessary data? And has any of the agencies here today ever requested some of this data as to the need for it?
If I can jump back in, Vincent Hudson, Legal Counsel for the Department of Education. I think there's another important distinction that needs to be made. One, I'll say this: the legislation says that VIVIS will be placed within the office of the governor, which is currently where the Bureau of Economic Research is. So if the administration chooses to either collaborate or to find that is the best fit, the legislation currently does that, and I think that is appropriate and sufficient. But what I think is really important is understanding here that there is not another agency or that there's not another body that is pulling data the way that this longitudinal data system does. In most other places, including BRE, they're reaching either getting surveys or that they're having to pull and grab information from those external agencies, as opposed to this data system that is linking information systems at each one of the agencies and automatically being pulled and scrubbed and then aggregated into this warehouse where they're able to generate reports.
Okay.
I think it's clear that an office like BRE would benefit from like the longitudinal data system. I just want to make sure that we're understanding that we're comparing what we're talking about here, because I think that might be
I
lost.
also want to ask another question. As you might be aware, that data could be sold, and we've had several breaches throughout the government where people had gone in, took data, even sold it to other individuals. What are we going to be doing to potentially mitigate situations like that from happening, and some of the concerns of some of the other testifiers as to collecting data that might be very sensitive that should not be collected specifically?
You could proceed with answering the question.
Okay.
I believe
The time?
the time was called, but Mr. Richardson, if you can answer the question posed by Senator
Thank you.
Francis Heyliger.
Okay, so again, James Richardson. So currently, the way this is, I'm speaking from how it's set up now. I don't know the future, if it's going to be housed or it's going to be stay in the cloud or with a vendor. But currently, with the agreement we have with the vendor, we are going through, the best practice security systems, and we also have agreements and also insurance on our data. I mean, that's the most I can say for now. What we have, I don't know if if Mr. Rupert want to expand on what would happen when they move to government house, if it becomes they choose to house it locally. But currently, it's not housed locally here in the Virgin Islands. It's housed through a vendor, and the security best practice security practices are being used to secure the data.
Okay. Thank you so much for your response. My time is up.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger, and thank you so much, Mr. Richardson. Point of information, Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you're recognized.
Thank you. Point of information, I'm going to repeat again that I personally support the context of this bill, but I am still not hearing anything specific about where this is going to be placed, specifically some of the suggestions we have made as it relates to directly for Bureau of Economic Research. And that is a serious contention for me, because I am one of those individuals that remembered when the governor's office was $2-point-something million. Now, every 5 seconds, we're dumping and creating agencies underneath the office of the governor. We have to now hire more staff. We're now talking about getting executive directors and additional people. And it now starts to feel like the governor's office is coming and becoming a whole nother entity unto itself. So I'm trying to figure out how we could start. I understand what they're saying, that the Bureau of Economic Research is underneath the governor's office, but we have to get to a point where we start putting things where they belong, instead of now creating yet another office space with another executive director, more staffing, and keep ballooning up this governor's office into something else outside of what I personally and hopefully individuals in this territory think a governor's office should be. That's one of my concerns, and I would like to get some kind of clarity on that aspect of it. Thank you.
Are you going to who speaks on behalf of this bill? Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of this territory once again. I speak to bill number 34-0103, and it's an act amending Title 23, Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 10, Section 1004, by adding a definition for essential businesses and essential workers. One of the things that I have noted as a Virgin Islander that was born and raised here for the past 48 years is we have been in a perpetual state of emergencies because we are in a hurricane zone. We are currently in a state of emergency. We are consistently on an annual basis in a state of preparedness when it comes to emergencies. So one of the things that we wanted to do was codify in the code was who is essential when it comes to emergencies. There are states that have done this, but also via executive order, the governor would also at times step in and identify who these individuals are. One of the things by doing this, by codifying it in the code, we directly put in a mindset of preparedness for those individuals to know that I don't have to wait to be told or for executive order to come out to say, well, guess what? We have to be prepared to get ready to be essential. So the goal here is to have it set in stone. And if based on the type of emergency we have, I could foresee whether the governor interjects and does an executive order to say, well, outside of what is codified in the code, we need to add an additional 3 categories or whatever. But that is the whole premise of this bill, so that preparedness would be part of our way of life and the way that we function and think. So I am open to the testimony of individuals in sharing their thoughts in hope of getting this bill passed, and with your testimony, whatever necessarily amendments that we need to do in order to make sure that this bill comes to fruition on behalf of protecting the people of this territory. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to take this time out to thank my colleagues for all of their information that they've shared today, as well as the testifiers. We have noted several areas that we could amend this piece of legislation to make it better, but the ultimate goal here was to codify in the code for preparation purposes. And based on what we're attempting to do here, the ultimate goal at the end of the day is to save lives, to make sure that the resources are available to the public, that these businesses are fully aware that they're essential to the recovery process in making sure that emergencies are part of this essential overall gamut. And I have taken note of what my millennial colleague has said in regards to definitions, as well as the testimony of Director Joshin, where he recommended certain amendments. And I am simply asking for my colleagues' support, because at the end of the day, we work collective together to benefit the people of this territory. And the amendments, I am sure, will create a balanced piece of legislation. Hopefully we could all pass it ultimately if it does make it to the Senate floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Colleagues, we have a motion. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your motion.
Thank you very much. Based on our discussion here, well, I move, let me get to that part first. Motion, I move that bill number 34-0103 be held in committee for further amendments and consideration. I so move.
Bill number 34-0103 has been properly moved by Senator Francis Heyliger, and it was seconded by Senators Javon E. James, Senator Franklin D. Johnson, and Senator Marvin A. Blyden. Roll call on the motion.
Senator Marvin A. Blyden. Yay. Senator Marvin A. Blyden, yay. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger.
Yes.
Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, yay. Senator Novel E. Francis. Senator Novel E. Francis, yay. Senator Javon E. James. Senator Javon E. James Sr., yay. Senator Franklin D. Johnson. Senator Franklin D. Johnson, yay. Senator Carla J. Joseph.
Yes.
Senator Carla A. Joseph. Senator Carla J. Joseph, yay. Senator Milton E. Potter.
Yes.
Senator Milton E. Potter. Yea. Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Bill number 34-0103, an act amending Title 23, Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 10, Section 1004, by adding a definition for essential businesses and essential employees or workers has been properly moved by Senator Francis Heyliger and seconded by Senator Franklin D. Johnson and Marvin A. Blyden, and will be held in the Committee on Government Operations and Consumer Protection. Yes, Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your point of information.
Thank you. I just wanted to put on the record that I sincerely want to thank the testifiers for coming here today. The information that you shared with us today was infallible, and we made notes of all the amendments that we're going to be making to this piece of legislation, and I will be working with my colleagues and the chair to find the closest and quickest date to get it back once we get all the amendments in. I will also be reaching out to the VITEMA director to make sure that in corroboration of improving and making the amendments to this bill that we get as much information in there as possible so it could serve the people in the best possible way. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mr. Clerk, who speaks on behalf of this legislation?
Yeah.
Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you're recognized.
Thank you. I wanted to share with you in regards to bill number 34-0108 as read by the clerk. This bill is attempting to change the retirement age of senators. Currently, according to the VI code, it's at 60 under the tiers, and we would like to change it to 65. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because we have an amendment here to amend this piece of documentation. And the amendment does correct some errors that were listed in the original bill. So at the appropriate time, we will be making an attempt to amend the bill. But what the bill is seeking to do is specifically now under Tier 2 to change the retirement age from 60 to 65. Now, the reason this is being done is initially in Act 6905, the retirement age was set at 50 years old. It initially was changed to 60, and currently, as of right now, the reason why I'm attempting to, according to what the bill says, to standardize the age of retirement across most sections of government. Now, one of the things that we're seeing is people are living longer, and every aspect that I could jump into to try to standardize the retirement age where I can, I have attempted to do so in other pieces of legislation, which will be coming forward. This is just one step to do so. I think when it comes to the retirement system, I have this thought and concept that we have to be fair across the board as much as we can. And I find it, what I can say, I find it that when it comes to us as representatives, we have to lead by example. And by leading by example, for me, is being part of the trenches of all of those people that have to work up to the age of 65, whether they're teachers, janitors, every single person that has to get to that retirement age. I think we as the people that they ask to represent them should be right in the trenches with them. So I am hoping that my colleagues would support this piece of legislation as an effort to amend the code in making sure that the people of this territory know that they have elected officials that are working right alongside them and have to work just as hard, and when it's their retirement age, that they have the same similar time frame. Now, I know some are going to speak as to the different tiers and how some have been able to retire at a certain age. I don't personally have any control over past and who was able to retire at 50, who was able to retire at 60. I only speak to what I can do as a legislator right now. And as of right now, I am trying to amend it to put it to 65, that it's on par with other individuals, especially those under Tier 2, that are working towards their retirement. And we are their employees. And we need to stand side by side with them for all the work that they're putting in, and we should be retiring accordingly at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Was there another point of information? Okay, you're recognized, Senator Francis Heyliger.
Thank you so much. The point of information speaks to the amendment that is before you. When we got this piece of legislation and it was already performed, we did notice that there was an error. I noted that chapter, when they spoke to chapter 37, that was an error in addition to attempting to get legal sufficiency. The numbers were skewed. We did contact legal counsel where they created an amendment. And if you do read the amendment, it strikes after the word chapter and eliminates all of that and substitutes it with, according to the amendment that we all have that was being circulated, it strikes after the word chapter and it speaks to 28A, section 763, subsection E, is amended by striking 60 and inserting 65. So that is why you have the two pieces in front of you, and it literally would hopefully clean up the mistake that we got out of legal counsel with this documentation.
Point. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your point of information.
I want to do some clarification as my good colleague from St. Croix just made some statements. What was requested of us if we participated in the subcommittee of GRS was to bring bills that would impact on a financial aspect as it relates to the GRS system. I made it perfectly clear that the reason why I never offered the bill is we had conversations with the GRS system, and even in their testimony, they stated that this basically would not have any financial impact on the system whatsoever as it relates to senators and a handful of individuals if they even participate in the system. And I clearly articulated that because at the end of the day, we were discussing bills that could potentially generate millions upon millions of dollars. And if I shared with you at that meeting, the reason why I did not believe this was germane to finding millions and millions of funds was because of that discussion with GRS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you. I would like once again to make it infallibly clear that this piece of legislation was brought forward not for any financial impact. That is the reason why it was not discussed at the GRS meetings as it relates to bringing forward funding when it comes to the subcommittee. For me, I'm going to say this again. We are here as elected officials, employees of the people of this territory, and this piece of legislation to move from 60 to 65 has everything to do with making sure that the very people that employ us understand that we are here in the trenches with them, and everyone that retires at 65. I do not believe that individuals in this institution should have any kind of unfair advantage in regards to what my colleagues were saying, that somehow young people coming in is not going to look at the legislature as a career. It is called public service, okay? It is called public service. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senator Gittins. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you so much. The very question that my colleague asked, I did make an effort to inquire with our legal counsel because that was also a concern. And based on what the response was, legal counsel did share that under section 763E, senators vested completing 3 terms. So this will affect senators that have served, not served more than the 3 terms. So if senators that are already here, according to what legal counsel is saying, that have already vested in for those 3 terms, it would be moving from henceforward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your point of information.
Thank you. I am in full support of what my colleague said, and when he brings the piece of legislation, I would be more than happy to co-sponsor it. One of the reasons in my effort in trying to do this across the board, I was attempting to put in for all the various, but speaking with my colleague, I was verbally told he already was putting it in or he already did. So that is literally the only reason I, as a senator, did not submit it. So if you have not done it already, based on our prior conversation, I will be more than happy to submit it. Thank you so much, my colleague.
You are recognized. Thank you so much, Senator Heyliger. You're recognized to conclude on your position relative to this bill before us.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you once again to the testifiers, to the people of the territory, to my colleagues. One of the things with me, it took me 8 years of running for public office to get elected. So I come in here with the thought process that the people made a decision that we are going to allow you to represent us for only 2 years. So any thought process of anyone thinking that for me as an individual that I have any intentions of having a career, I look at this as a 2-year job, and based on the work I provide, the people will make a decision accordingly. And that's as far as it goes for me. Now, this piece of legislation, as I've listened to some of my colleagues speak about individuals being younger, I'm 48 years old. So I personally, based on what legal counsel has shared with me, I would be affected by this piece of legislation based on what was told to me. Because until I am vested, if I do get reelected for 3 terms, then and only then I could participate in this retirement system. So this is not a situation where I even excluded myself. Now, at the end of the day, I am going to repeat again. When I brought this piece of legislation forward, it had nothing to do with any financial aspect of altering the GRS system. We are fully aware that based on the number of individuals that are participating in the system, we spoke to GRS, they shared with us that some senators don't even opt in to retire. Several of them don't even participate. For me, this had a whole thing to do with creating a parity as it relates to making sure that the very people we serve, we are on par with them. And that is what I and my intentions were about. Now, as it relates to the bill, yes, there were some issues with the bill that was identified by legal counsel, and in speaking to them, they came up with an amendment to clarify and fix the issue with the original bill that we had. For public knowledge, once a bill is performed, even if we see errors or issues with it, we cannot go backwards and undo it. Because if I could have, from the very moment we saw the issues after it was performed, before it even came to the Senate floor, I would have been more than happy to alter them. But the only way to change it once it's performed is via an amendment. So that is why this amendment is here today, and I will be offering it at the appropriate time. You know, when I hear my colleagues speak about young people, we all encourage young people to go out and work. We all encourage them to go and be entrepreneurs. whether they choose to work in business, whether they choose to work for the government. But when it comes to this job, it's called public service for me. I cannot speak to anyone, and any plans for retirement has never been an initial thought. But at the end of the day, when I think of the people I represent, I think about that man that doesn't even have an option for a retirement plan. And I represent him as well. I think about those individuals that work 30, 40 plus years and are going home in their 70s because they have to work the extra mile. So when I'm hearing the thought process of us as elected officials stating we have to be mindful that young people get a chance as a career as a public servant, I'm all for you wanting to be a public servant, like all 15 of us are elected to be. But at the end of the day, we should never forget that we were elected to represent people. And at the end of the day, for me, I'm always going to ask myself the question, am I a reflection of the people that I represent? And this is what I am doing here today. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with trying to have a career. For me, this is trying to fix a wrong, and that is it. So I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their thoughts. I appreciate it. And hopefully today, once this bill is amended, I'm simply asking for their support. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your motion.
Thank you. I move that bill number 34-0108 be forwarded to the Committee on Rules for further consideration. I so move.
It's been properly moved. Do I hear a second? The motion fails due to a lack of a second. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon to my colleagues again. Good afternoon to the testifiers. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. The first question I want to ask, as it relates to, have you had any new strategic plans or strategic ideas after you have attended these conferences? Do you wish to share in regards to any type of potential profitability or efficiency that could be coming forward based on you attending these conferences?
Yeah, I shared a few of those thoughts in my testimony. And if you were to look back at our original presentation during our budget review, there's quite a few there as well. For me, the objective when I came in the door 3 years ago was to increase the gameplay, to increase the revenue for our traditional draw game. It is still our goal to further improve as part of our short-term goal to improve on our revenues coming in from a traditional game. That's why we mentioned give me a second here. There's subscription sales. That is an avenue where we will be able to tap into the market, the younger market, and people in the Virgin Islands to improve our sales.
Okay.
So yes, that's one of many. So yeah.
Thank you so much. What type of training are the employees involved in right now? And do you see, what kind of potential benefits do you see benefiting the Virgin Islands Lottery from this training?
So members of MUSL, which is a multi-state lottery association, and members of NASPL, which is a National Association of State and Provincial Lotteries, they sponsor a plethora of different PDS courses, professional development courses, MUSL as well. And there are certain conferences that have been held virtually. And what we try to do through our HR division is to identify some of those courses and match our employees, whether in accounting, whether in law enforcement, marketing, whichever division, even in our administrative staff, where we have them attend these conferences or trainings virtually to improve and enhance their skill sets and the standards.
Good. I'm not sure if my previous colleague touched on this, but in regards to illegal gaming, what kind of percentage do you see that impacts the Virgin Islands Lottery?
Severely, not just the VI lottery. It impacts our society in general. We have access to a white paper. I can't share specific details but I'll tell you, to the tune of some $85 million, it impacts our community.
So based on your testimony, we potentially could be losing $85 million in revenue. I know we have laws on the books, and it has a lot to do with enforcement and being able to catch up to some of these individuals and entities. What kind of serious effort between VI Lottery or even in partnership with the administration is being done to potentially curtail this $85 million loss based on what you're sharing today?
Okay, because it's bigger than lottery. It's so much bigger than lottery. You're looking at prostitution. You're looking at just illegal games across the board. That underground industry is going to require partnerships between not just lottery enforcement, but the police department here in the Virgin Islands, federal agencies as well, to come together in making a dent in that illegal market. So presently, our new Director of Investigations, Mr. Jacobs, has been working in tandem with the Office of the Attorney General. He has met with federal employees, use it through the Fusion Center. And there's other initiatives that have already started that literally that we can't share, but there are initiatives that are at play currently, Senator.
Okay, thank you so much for that. This professional family club.
Senator.
Oh, time?
Yeah, time was called.
I am sorry, my time has been
but
called.
I will allow you
Thank you.
Wrap up. You're good?
I'm okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger.